You know, if you were maybe expecting the usual suspects to be spraying champagne after the Formula One Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix 2025, well, you might have needed to double-check those results.
Yeah.
It's just another reminder, isn't it? In motorsport, what you expect isn't always quite what you get.
Absolutely. And that's honestly what makes it so gripping sometimes. Today, we're really going to try and dissect what happened out there in Miami.
Right.
We've got this race report and the official results here from Motorsports by Alex, which should give us a pretty detailed picture. Help us figure out why the race kind of unfolded the way it did.
Okay. So, your mission as our listener, should you choose to accept it, is basically to come away from this deep dive with more than just, like, the final standings. We're digging beneath the surface, looking for those surprising moments, the strategic calls, and, well, the sheer drama that shaped this thing.
Yeah.
So where else do we start but with the winner, Oscar Piastri? It wasn't exactly a straightforward lights to flag win for him, was it?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Starting from fourth on the grid, that immediately tells you he had to work for it, right? Had to make his way to the front.
Right. Suggest some key moves or maybe just really strong pace.
Exactly. And, this wasn't just a one-off thing either.
No.
The report, it highlights this as Piastri's fourth win of the season already and his third consecutive victory.
Wow. Okay. 3 in a row.
Yeah, that's some serious form he's showing.
So is this just like a lucky streak, or are we seeing something more fundamental here? A real shift, maybe, in his driving or his confidence?
Well, it certainly suggests a really strong combination of driver and car right now.
Yeah.
And if you look at the kind of bigger picture, the report talks about periods of extraordinary dominance for McLaren.
Extraordinary dominance. So
Yeah, the fact that George Russell, who finished third, was apparently like 37 seconds behind the leaders at one point.
37 seconds.
Yeah, that really underlines the kind of pace advantage they seem to have. That sort of gap usually points to a very effective car setup for that specific track, maybe. Or perhaps some recent upgrades are really clicking.
A 37-second gap in modern F1 is, it's huge. The atmosphere after the race sounds interesting too. Piastri, obviously thrilled, but, composed. And his teammate Norris, who grabbed second, right there congratulating him straight away. Seems like a pretty healthy dynamic in that team.
It does look that way. Now, speaking of Lando Norris, he had a pretty eventful race himself.
Oh, yeah.
He started right up there on the front row, P2. But the report says he dropped down to 6th after that lap 1 tangle involving Verstappen.
Ouch. Down to 6th from second? That's quite a setback early on.
It is. But, the mark of a top driver is how they recover from stuff like that.
Absolutely. And recover he did, didn't he? Brilliantly to get back up and finish second. What really caught my eye in the report was the point where he was closing the gap to Piastri. Got it down to just, 3.7 seconds.
Yeah, just under 4 seconds. And that naturally sparks the question, doesn't it?
Right.
Were McLaren going to step in? Team orders? Or was Piastri just sort of managing his lead?
Right. Keeping something in hand.
It raises that interesting point about team strategy. We all know fans love seeing teammates battle it out properly.
Oh, yeah.
And this report actually includes a quote from Zach Brown saying the McLaren drivers were free to race.
Okay, so no orders then.
Apparently not. Which, really fueled the anticipation of a potential fight that, didn't quite happen in the end. Maybe Norris just ran out of laps, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe so. Let's shift focus a bit. Mercedes. George Russell, he got the final podium spot, 3rd place, maybe a little unexpected. The report mentions he'd been struggling this weekend personally, so grabbing a podium must have felt pretty good, I imagine.
Yeah, a welcome surprise for him, probably. And his little story about a Lego race incident with Norris.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a bit of fun, doesn't it?
It does. Kind of humanizes them a bit. It reminds you, there's still some camaraderie there, even at this super competitive level.
And this was Russell's 4th podium this year, wasn't it?
That's right. Shows pretty decent consistency, even when maybe he feels he's not, 100%.
Okay, now, the pole sitter. Max Verstappen, finishing 4th. That's not a result we see every week from him, is it?
No, definitely not. Starting P1, you'd bank on him being right in the mix for the win, wouldn't you?
For sure. The report mentions that first lap duel with Norris where Norris ran wide, but ultimately Verstappen just couldn't hang on to that lead or close the gap back to Russell later on. That sort of 1.5 second gap just seemed stuck there.
Yeah, it hovered around there. But what's interesting is the quote included from Jolyon Palmer. He says, when Verstappen is in contention, you can never rest easy. If he has half a chance, to try and get back to the podium, he will absolutely go for it. So it suggests even back and forth, you couldn't quite count him out, even if he couldn't quite, bridge that final gap.
Always a threat. Okay, let's talk Ferrari. Sounds like things were maybe a bit complicated over there.
Yeah. Complicated might be one word for it. The report goes into the strategic calls, those position swaps between Leclerc and Hamilton.
Right.
It really highlights how complex team strategy can get, especially when you've got drivers maybe on different tires, different pace at different times.
Exactly. And the fact that Leclerc seemed to be holding Hamilton up initially when Hamilton apparently had more speed.
Right.
That's interesting.
It is. Makes you wonder about the communication, the initial plan they had.
And the way the communication actually happened, Leclerc getting told about a potential swap before Hamilton even knew he might need to let him by.
Yeah, that's
bound to create some frustration, surely. Hamilton's radio message, have a tea break while you were at it. Yeah, that kind of sums it up, doesn't it?
It pretty much does. And then the dynamic shifts again later with Leclerc asking the team to tell Hamilton to speed up because he was stuck in his dirty air.
The dirty air issue.
Exactly. For anyone less familiar, that's the turbulent air coming off the car in front makes it really hard for the car behind to follow closely or overtake effectively.
Right. So it just paints a picture of a strategy that maybe wasn't executed as smoothly as they might have hoped.
Seems that way. And we can't forget that late race contact between Sainz and Hamilton too, battling for 8th and 9th. The report mentioned the stewards were looking into that one.
Okay, lots going on there. Beyond the sort of front runners, there were some other standout performances and incidents that the report picked up on. Alexander Albon, P5 for Williams.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic result for them, isn't it?
It really is. A result like that, it's a significant step for Williams, suggests maybe some real improvement in their car, especially on a track like Miami.
And what about the rookie, Kimi Antonelli? 6th from Mercedes. That's pretty impressive too.
Very solid performance, especially given, Russell's earlier comments about his own weekend struggles. Good showing from the rookie.
We also saw quite a few retirements, didn't we? That first lap contact taking out Duhan and Lawson straight away.
Yeah, race over before it really began for that.
And then power unit problems sidelining Ollie Bierman and Gabriel Bortoleto later on.
Not a good day for those guys or their teams. Reliability issues like that can really hurt in the championship fight.
Definitely. And the report mentions post-race investigations adding a bit more drama. Sainz and Gasly looked up for yellow flag infringements.
That's right. And Yuki Tsunoda just clinging onto that final point in P10.
Oh, yeah.
By only a 1/10 of a second, even with a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
Wow, that's close.
Proper nail-biting stuff right to the line. And Isaac Hadjar just missing out in P11 shows how tight that midfield battle is.
Absolutely. What else? Hülkenberg's long first stint on the hards. He was clearly gambling, wasn't he? Hoping for rain or a safety car.
Yeah, playing the long game strategy. For those maybe less familiar, the hard tires last longer but are generally a bit slower, especially early on, compared to the medium or soft compounds. So yeah, definitely a gamble.
And Alonso spinning at the same corner he crashed at in qualifying just adds to a tough weekend for him, I guess.
Seems so. And remember all that talk about heavy rain beforehand.
Yeah. Didn't really amount to much in the end, did it?
Not significantly, no. But those virtual safety car periods we had.
Right. Triggered by Behrman and Bortolito's mechanicals and Duhan's car being stuck.
Yeah, those definitely factor into the strategic thinking, affect the race flow.
And circling back to McLaren's pace, Palmer's comment about them being, 1 second per lap quicker than anyone else at one stage?
Yeah, 1 second a lap. That just really hammers home how dominant they were on this particular Sunday.
Which brings us nicely to the strategy, the tire choices. The report noted that contrast, didn't it? Russell and Hamilton starting on the hards, while most of the others went for the mediums. The medium being that kind of all-rounder tire, balancing grip and durability.
Right. And Palmer's observation that the medium seemed like the better tire overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does make you wonder if that initial hard tire choice maybe put Mercedes on the back foot slightly in those opening laps. Pace-wise?
Could be. And finally, just to loop back to McLaren and that free-to-race instruction from Zach Brown, it's pretty interesting, isn't it, that even with such a fast car, a potential 1-2 locked in, they still let their drivers push each other.
It does suggest a lot of confidence within the team, doesn't it? Belief in their drivers, willingness to let them compete, which, is always exciting for us watching.
Definitely. So, okay, let's try and summarize the main takeaways for you, our listener. We saw, a really compelling win from Oscar Piastri.
Showcasing that McLaren speed.
Yeah, impressive stuff. Lando Norris with a fantastic recovery drive to make it a McLaren 1-2.
Right. Verstappen, pole sitter, surprisingly finishing fourth.
And Ferrari having, let's say, a race marked by some internal strategic complexities.
Hey, yeah, that's one way to put it.
So many of those little aha moments in this race, really, from Piastri's win maybe being a bit of a surprise to just how fast McLaren were and all those strategic calls playing out.
Some working better than others, obviously.
Exactly. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a quick but pretty thorough understanding of what went down and why it matters.
And this really leaves us with a big question for you to ponder going forward, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, given McLaren's obvious pace here and Piastri hitting this amazing run of form, what could this mean for the championship battle?
Right.
Will Red Bull and Max Verstappen find an answer? Can they respond to this McLaren challenge?
Good question. It's certainly going to be fascinating to see how the rest of the season unfolds from here.